Hello everyone, today we're going to be going over your ideas for a new Splatoon 3 weapon class. We got bows, and we know there'll definitely be another one since we got dualies and umbrellas in Splatoon 2. Well, maybe not definitely, but I'm willing to bet we're going to get another one, so I'm going to go over a bunch of your ideas, and let's just get started. Okay, so our first one from Crow Pond wants a anchor type weapon, which this design is from Squeaky over here. I believe this is the person who made the custom Splatoon 3 concept before that ended up being an actual game. So talk about a slow arc of ink, can throw an anchor to grapple. So some kind of like shooting grapple hybrid. So some similar ideas we got is a short range harpoon type weapon that's slow, heavy hitting, but can also be thrown at opponents for a one shot or retrieve. Something kind of like a mix of a heavy brush with the high risk reward option, which is cool. And then Shoot also wants a type of anchor that relies on short range attacks and pulls the enemy out of position, or maybe a crossbow. So I think anchor is a very interesting idea because I think it falls into a hybrid kind of weapon. Like it's partially its own thing, but it's also partially kind of like a brush in the sense that it's a melee weapon. Or I think the route you could do with this is making it a sub-weapon based on trying to basically Roadhog hook from Overwatch, where you grab someone and pull them toward you, but maybe not as far, because that could be a little good in a Splatoon game. I really like the idea of having the grab be a main weapon, because first, main weapons having two firing modes is nice, but also, if we're gonna have an option that can hook someone into your team, we can make this, like, extremely high risk, high reward. So I think this can't really be its own weapon class. Maybe it could, but it would be kind of limited, or you merge this and brushes to be one class, so it's kind of like a brush. The way I can see this working is basically it has brush flicks without brush roll, so you just kind of get to flick people. Maybe these could be more suited for fighting rather than moving around since we don't have a roll option. And I want the grapple to be the most high-risk thing in the game. So I want it to be like, you throw the anchor, and then you immediately pull it back. If you hook someone, you get to pull them right towards you, and it'll do 30 damage. Huge potential. I think the downside should be that this move is extremely laggy. Like, you get stuck, hit or not, for a bit. Like, the actual throwing and hooking it back takes a bit. But secondly, this uses 90% of your tank. This is super high risk, high reward, but I think you have to for an option that can literally pull someone into your team. But overall, I am a big fan of this idea. I think we need more brush type weapons, so having it like that is cool. And this could be one of the few ways we can have a Roadhog hook type thing in this game. And it gives a main weapon with two different modes, which I think is something we need more of, more depth, so I really like it. Shrimp said, I think they'll introduce a salad spinner type weapon with an aggressive protection type weapon like Brello's, but instead of absorbing damage, it reflects shots back and doubles the damage output. It'll have little pain, but good damage. Okay, I think the idea of a reflector is cool, however, it should not double damage. Like, 50 damage shots becoming a one-shot? Nah, that's way too strong. I don't even think it should increase damage at all. I think it should be exactly the same. But I do like the idea of a deflect. I think that's really cool. The main thing is just how do you balance it, so that could be hard. The main thing for Brella that counters it is like sub-weapons or specific weapon classes, and specific weapon classes could still shoot around the salad spinner. But if you can reflect stuff like bombs or, god knows, special weapon shots, then it becomes really strong. But if you can't, then I think it could be weak. So it's a lot harder to balance a reflect type weapon. I think you have to make the main gun very weak and make it like a support weapon. It mostly focuses on paint and very light damage, and then its heavy damage comes from being around a teammate and reflecting other high damage shots. Also, this thing could be scary if you're a Charger player, but I think that would be really funny. Like, you just snipe, and then your shot gets reflected and it one-shots you. That could be really cool for that weapon. So, I mean, I see a lot of potential in a deflect-type option, but I think balancing-wise is really hard. So, it could work, but it would definitely be a really tricky thing to figure out properly. So, one of the most requested ones, which came from Jamil and from Oido, is a boomerang. A lot of people really want a boomerang type weapon. Now, this could look something like this, where you get to throw it, it can bounce off of walls before returning to you. This concept art by Jamil is really cool, by the way. And I think there is a lot of potential for a boomerang as a weapon. I think it's nice to have more arc shot type weapons like Blob does. However, I think the problem with this weapon class comes with trying to design like 3 to 5 different type of boomerangs. That could be really hard. And so what I think this should be is a sub-weapon. I think this could be a very cool sub-weapon type thing for poke damage or some type of use. I think that makes it more unique in the trajectory options you get with having a boomerang, like looping it around a corner, bouncing it off a wall, could be really interesting. I just think it fits better as a sub because it's really hard to make multiple weapon classes around it, but I really like the idea of a boomerang. I'm just more hopeful this is a sub than a main weapon. So, a lot of people want a perfume bottle as a weapon, which is basically a spray type weapon. It could still be an amount of shots to kill. Some people say spray cans instead of a perfume bottom that sprays a mist instead of shots. And some people have the idea of damage changing with it. I'm not quite sure what they could do with this. There is another idea, though, that I think they can do with the spray cans. So, I like the idea of spraying. I like the idea of a spray beam mist type weapon. And I think you can do two things with it. One that's closer to this idea would be like a mist cloud that expands and does damage if you're in it. Maybe it kind of lingers, but wouldn't be super powerful, more for walling out areas. The second one could be, rather than instead of just being a cloud mist, it could be like a Symmetra beam from Overwatch, where you shoot it and it ramps up damage the longer you shoot. And I think this means that this class, in my opinion, a mist shooting type weapon class, is probably my biggest hope for a Splatoon 2, or for a Splatoon 3 weapon class. Because there's a ton of variations you could do. You could do lingering mist effect, you could do damage that ramps up, you could do even a smoke bomb type thing if you want. You have stuff like perfume, spray cans, later on someone says a spray nozzle, you could use a hose. You could use a glue gun for this. Like, there are so many different ideas for what you could make these weapons look like. And there's a lot you could do with a beam type damage. So I think there's a ton of interesting ideas. Personally, I really like the idea of a laser that ramps up for tracking opponents. Like, start weak, get strong. But what it would have to be is something like when you shoot something and it gets stronger, it will retain that stronger beam strength for a while. So you get rewarded, like you track someone but you don't kill them, you still get a more powerful beam for like 5 seconds. And then when you go shoot the next person, you keep up that powerful beam. And you could do the second one that's like mist that acts like a cloud and does consistent damage. So I think there's a ton of ideas you could do with this. I think mist and beams have a ton of potential and could be combined to be one weapon class with a lot of ideas. It is my personal big hope. Bagel says fist so that I can beat your ass. And I mean, that's funny. But Splatoon 2 has given away like 3 copies of arms. It's kind of a meme in the Nintendo tournaments that the first prize for a while has been arms. So I actually think turn this into an actual idea and maybe an arms type weapon. Like you get some form of ink fist that you can shoot out at people. I have no idea if that would actually work. It would be really difficult to make something like that, kind of a brawler punch type. And it would have to be based on knockback or something, so that might be really hard. But I mean, I just think a crossover with arms would be funny, considering how many times Splatoon has given away arms. So I had to mention it. Thanks, Bagel. And that will be the end of part 1, the first half of your Splatoon 3 weapon class ideas. The second part will be out shortly, so be sure to subscribe if you want to see it, and I will see you all in a future video.